It wasn't the crack of my ribs that broke me. It was my parents telling me to shut my mouth about it. That night, I realized family can be more dangerous than strangers, and the doctor who saved me proved that sometimes the only way to heal is to shatter the silence. Before I tell you what happened, let me know where you're watching from, and tell me, what would you do if your own blood hurt you and everyone else told you to keep it quiet? My name is Emily Grant, and at 34 years old, I thought I had escaped the shadow of my family's dysfunction. As an internal medicine physician at Ashford General Hospital in North Carolina, I'd built a life that looked successful from the outside white coat, stethoscope, the respect that comes with doctor before your name. But beneath that professional veneer, I was still the little sister who learned to flinch at the sound of her brother's footsteps. Growing up in the Grant household meant understanding hierarchy from birth. My father, Charles Grant, built his real estate empire from a modest inheritance into a multi-million-dollar enterprise that dominated Ashford's skyline. My mother, Elaine, perfected the art of the charity gala smile and the ability to make bruises disappear with the right shade of concealer. And then there was Ryan, 3 years older, heir apparent, and the recipient of every excuse our parents could manufacture. The Grant family portrait that hung in our country club's Hall of Fame told a different story than the one I lived. In that gilded frame, we looked like the American dream incarnate successful patriarch, elegant matriarch, accomplished children. What the photographer didn't capture was the broken lamp from the night before, or the way my mother's hand gripped my shoulder just a little too tight, reminding me to smile properly, Emily. Ryan's violence started small, the way it always does. A shove here, a twisted arm there, always followed by she's exaggerating or boys will be boys or my personal favorite. Siblings fight, Charles, it's normal. By the time I was 10, I'd learned that crying only made it worse and that telling only meant being called dramatic. I still remember the day Ryan threw my camera, my most prized possession, against the wall because I'd taken a picture of him passed out drunk at 16. The lens shattered into pieces that I tried to collect, cutting my fingers on the broken glass while my parents told me I shouldn't have provoked him. That camera had been everything to me. Photography was my escape, my way of capturing beauty in a world that often felt ugly. I'd spend hours in the darkroom I'd set up in our basement, watching images emerge from nothing, feeling like I had control over something. But after that day, after watching my parents make me apologize to Ryan for invading his privacy, I understood that some dreams weren't meant for Grant daughters. Medicine is a respectable profession, my father announced at dinner during my senior year of high school. It wasn't a suggestion. The Grant men went into business. The Grant women went into fields that looked good in Christmas newsletters. My acceptance to medical school was celebrated with the same champagne they'd later use to toast Ryan's business failures turned successes. Each bankruptcy somehow transformed into a learning experience by our father's connections. I threw myself into my studies, into the grueling hours of residency, into building a life 2 hours away from Ashford. Distance, I thought, was my salvation. I could play the dutiful daughter at holidays, survive the formal dinners, and retreat to my apartment where the walls didn't hold memories of fear. I even convinced myself that Ryan had changed, that his MBA and his position as vice president of operations meant he'd evolved past his rage. But trauma has a way of hiding in your bones, waiting. Every time I treated a patient with suspicious injuries, every time I heard the familiar excuses, I fell. It was an accident. I'm just clumsy. I saw my own reflection. The careful way they held themselves, the rehearsed explanations, the family member hovering just a little too close, coaching their answers. I'd document everything meticulously, follow protocol, make the mandated reports. I became known as the doctor who caught things others missed, who asked the uncomfortable questions. "You care too much," my colleague once told me after a particularly difficult case. "You can't save everyone." But I wasn't trying to save everyone. I was trying to save the girl I used to be, one patient at a time. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd become an expert at recognizing family violence in others while still showing up to Sunday dinners where my biggest accomplishment, saving lives, was worth less conversation than Ryan's latest property acquisition. My mother would pat my hand and ask when I was going to settle down, as if a husband could somehow validate my existence in a way my medical degree couldn't. My father would nod absently when I mentioned my research, then spend an hour discussing market projections with Ryan. I adapted. I survived. I told myself that was enough. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday, embossed gold lettering on cream cardstock that probably cost more than most people's weekly groceries. The Grant family cordially invites you to celebrate Ryan's appointment as executive vice president. Of course it was at the family estate. Of course it was mandatory. And of course my mother called 3 times to ensure I'd be there, looking presentable. I arrived at 7:30 p.m. sharp, wearing the navy dress my mother had approved via FaceTime. My hair pulled back in what she called a professional but feminine style. The house blazed with light, every window a golden rectangle against the October darkness. The same house where I'd learned to walk softly, speak carefully, and never, ever challenge Ryan. "Emily, there's our doctor." My father's voice boomed across the foyer, his scotch already half empty. Behind him, Ryan stood in his Italian suit, all sharp edges and sharper smile. At 37, he'd perfected the Grant Air image commanding presence, calculated charm, the kind of handsomeness that made people overlook the coldness in his eyes. "Congratulations, Ryan," I said, accepting the champagne flute my mother pressed into my hand. "Thanks, him." He used my childhood nickname like a weapon, knowing how it reduced me to the little girl who used to hide in closets. "Dad says you've been doing good work at the hospital, fixing up the locals." The dinner was a performance piece, each course accompanied by another story of Ryan's brilliance, his vision for the company, his natural leadership. I pushed salmon around my plate and contributed appropriate nods. It wasn't until dessert that things shifted. "Sarah sends her regards," I mentioned casually, referring to Ryan's latest girlfriend who'd confided in me at a charity event. "She said she's sorry she couldn't make it tonight. Something about visiting her sister." Ryan's fork paused midway to his mouth. "You talked to Sarah?" "We ran into each other at the hospital gala last month. She mentioned you two were planning a trip to Greece." "So, what else did she mention?" His voice had that edge I remembered, the one that used to precede broken toys and bruised arms. "Just normal conversation. Ryan, she seems lovely." "Lovely." He set down his fork with deliberate precision. "You know what I think is lovely. When people mind their own fucking business." "Ryan." Our mother's warning was perfunctory, more concerned about language than tone. "No, Mom, I'm serious." He was drinking faster now, the scotch replacing champagne. "Emily here thinks because she has a medical degree, she's got the right to psychoanalyze everyone, to insert herself into conversations that don't concern her." I was being polite. "You were being nosy, just like always, watching, judging, thinking you're better than everyone else." "That's enough," I said quietly, standing up. "Sit down." Our father's command was sharp. "We're having a family dinner." "Let her go." Ryan laughed, ugly and mean. "She's probably got some patient to save. Some sad case she can project all her issues onto." I turned to leave, but Ryan was faster, always had been. He grabbed my wrist as I passed his chair, fingers digging into the small bones. "You're jealous," he hissed, low enough that our parents could pretend not to hear. "You've always been jealous. Of my success, my relationships, everything I have that you don't." "Let go of me. Or what you'll diagnose me with something, put it in my medical record." I yanked my arm free, or tried to. In the struggle, he stood abruptly, using his full height advantage. The motion was violent, intended to intimidate, but I stepped back at the wrong moment. He pushed hard, deliberate, with both hands against my shoulders. Time slowed as I fell backward, the corner of the marble kitchen island rushing up to meet me. The impact was precise, devastating. I heard the crack before I felt it, a sound like stepping on dry kindling. Then the pain hit, stealing my breath, turning the world white at the edges. I lay on the cold marble floor, each breath a knife between my ribs. Above me, 3 faces looked down my mother's painted with inconvenience, my father's with calculation, and Ryan's with a satisfaction he didn't bother to hide. "Get up," Ryan said. "Stop being dramatic." But I couldn't. Each attempt to move sent fresh waves of agony through my chest. My medical training kicked in probable rib fracture, possible internal injury, need immediate evaluation. I gasped, to go to the hospital. "Don't be ridiculous," my mother said, already moving to help me sit up, her hands careful not to wrinkle her dress. "You just got the wind knocked out of you." "It was an accident," my father said, his CEO voice taking command of the narrative. "You tripped, Emily. These heels you girls wear completely impractical." I tried to speak, to correct him, but the pain stole my words. Each breath was shallow, careful, insufficient. My mother helped me to a chair, her movements efficient and cold, like she was handling broken china instead of her broken daughter. "Ryan didn't mean to," she said, already rewriting history. "You know how siblings can be. You two always did roughhouse too much." "Roughhouse." I managed to wheeze. He pushed. "You fell?" My father interrupted. "And we'll have no more discussion about it. Ryan, apologize to your sister." "Sorry you can't handle your wine." Ryan's apology was another violence, delivered with a smirk. My ribs screamed as I tried to sit straighter. "I need medical attention. This is serious." What you need," my mother said, producing painkillers from her purse with practiced ease, "is to take these and calm down. You're making a scene over nothing." "Nothing." I touched my side gingerly, feeling the unnatural movement beneath my fingers. "I'm a doctor. I know what a fracture feels like." "Then heal thyself," Ryan muttered, pouring another scotch. My father stood. His physical presence meant to end all debate. "Emily, you're overreacting. This is a family matter, and we handle family matters privately. Take the medication, rest in the guest room if you need to, but this hysteria stops now." Hysteria. The word hit almost as hard as the island had. A woman in pain was hysteria. A woman speaking truth was hysteria. It was 2019, but in the Grant household, we were still operating by 1950s rules. "Think about what you're suggesting," my mother added, her voice dropping to that register that meant business. "You want to go to the hospital, where you work, and tell them that you had too much to drink at a family dinner, that you're clumsy, because that's the only story that makes sense." "The truth makes sense," I said. "The truth," my father's voice was steel, "is that we're celebrating Ryan's promotion. The truth is that the Grant family doesn't air its laundry in public. The truth is that you're being dramatic, as usual." I looked at each of their faces, searching for something human, some recognition of what had just happened. My mother adjusted her pearls. My father checked his Rolex. Ryan smiled. That same smile from childhood when he'd broken my things and watched me get blamed for crying about it. "I'm leaving," I announced, struggling to stand. "Don't be foolish," my mother said. "You can't drive like this. Stay here tonight. Everything will look better in the morning." But I knew that morning would bring more gaslighting, more revisionist history. By sunrise, the story would be cemented. Silly Emily had one too many glasses of champagne, took a tumble, made a fuss over nothing. Poor Ryan, having his celebration ruined by his attention-seeking sister. "I'm going home," I insisted, though standing made the room spin. "If you leave now," my father said quietly, "if you make any kind of scene about this, you need to think very carefully about the consequences. Ryan is taking over the company. His reputation matters. Our family's reputation matters. Don't be selfish, Emily." Selfish. There it was. The ultimate Grant family sin. Selfish to feel pain. Selfish to want medical care. Selfish to expect my own family to give a damn that I was hurt. And what about my reputation? I asked. What about my well-being? Ryan laughed, sharp and cruel. What reputation? You're a nobody doctor in a nobody hospital. I'm about to run a multi-million-dollar company. Do the math. I did the math. I calculated the distance to the door, the probability of making it to my car, the location of the nearest urgent care that wasn't my own hospital. I factored in 27 years of similar calculations, a lifetime of algorithms designed to minimize damage from the very people who should have protected me. Fine, I said, the word tasting like defeat. I'll go home, quietly. Good girl. My father nodded, already dismissing me. Drive carefully. My mother walked me to the door, her grip on my elbow firm but not supportive. At the threshold, she leaned in close, her breath smelling of Chablis and disappointment. Don't even think about telling anyone about this, she whispered. Not your friends, not your colleagues, no one. Ryan's future depends on his image. Don't you dare destroy your brother's life over your clumsiness. My clumsiness, I repeated, each word punctuated by stabbing pain. That's right. And Emily. She smiled, the same smile she wore at charity galas. We have a lovely gift basket being delivered to your apartment tomorrow, from the whole family, because we love you, despite your difficulties. I drove home at 10 miles under the speed limit, every bump in the road a fresh agony, every turn a reminder that my own family had chosen him. Again. Always. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. Every position brought fresh agony, and lying flat made breathing feel like drowning in air. I sat upright in my reading chair, watching the clock crawl toward dawn, each hour marked by increasing pain and the buzz of my silenced phone. 23 missed calls, 41 text messages, all variations on the same theme, hope you're feeling better. Let's put this behind us. Remember, family first. By 6 a.m., the gift basket had already arrived, delivered by a private service that apparently operated outside normal business hours when you paid enough. Imported chocolates, designer bath products, a bottle of champagne with a note, to our dear Emily, with love always. The hypocrisy of it made me angrier than the pain. My phone rang at 7:15 a.m. Mother. Emily, darling, I trust you're feeling more yourself this morning. Your father wants to have lunch today to clear the air. At the club. I can't, I said, my voice hoarse from the sleepless night. Don't be difficult. This has gone on long enough. Wear the blue Chanel suit, it's slimming and professional. I said I can't. Emily Grant, you will not. I hung up, first time in my life. The phone immediately rang again. I turned it off. By 8 a.m., I'd made my decision. I couldn't go to my own hospital, too many questions, too much gossip potential. But Dr. Harper Lewis had just opened a private practice on the other side of town. We'd met at a medical conference 6 months ago, bonded over coffee and shared experiences with difficult families, though I'd never told her the full truth about mine. I called her office at 8:30 a.m., explained I needed an urgent appointment. Her receptionist, hearing the pain in my voice, squeezed me in for 9:45 a.m. The drive was agony. Every breath was measured, every movement calculated. In the mirror, I could see the bruising beginning to bloom across my ribs, purple-black proof that even my body wouldn't cooperate with my family's fiction. Dr. Lewis's office was a converted Victorian, all soft colors and natural light. She met me personally at the door, her concern immediate and genuine. Emily, my God, what happened? I opened my mouth to lie. The words were ready, practiced, automatic. I fell. I was clumsy. Too much wine. But sitting in her exam room, faced with her direct gaze and professional competence, something cracked inside me, something deeper than ribs. My brother pushed me, I said. The words felt foreign, treasonous. During a family dinner, I hit a marble counter. Her hands stilled during the examination. On purpose. He was angry, drunk. I said something about his girlfriend, and I couldn't finish. Emily, I need to document this properly. You know that. No, I said quickly. I just need treatment. Please, Harper, my family. It's complicated. She continued her examination in silence, her touch gentle but thorough. When she helped me onto the X-ray table, I bit back a scream. 2 fractured ribs, she confirmed, showing me the films. Lucky they didn't puncture anything. But Emily, this isn't just about medical treatment. Please don't. I'm mandated to report this, she said quietly. You know I am. Domestic violence. From my brother, I'm 34 years old, not a child. Age doesn't matter. Violence is violence. She sat down across from me, her expression mixing professional duty with personal concern. Emily, how long has this been going on? The question undid me. How long since before memory? Since Ryan learned that his fists spoke louder than my words? Since my parents decided their son's potential mattered more than their daughter's pain? Forever, I whispered. Dr. Lewis was quiet for a moment, then pulled her chair closer. I'm going to tell you something I don't share often. My uncle broke my arm when I was 28. At Thanksgiving. In front of 12 family members. You know what they did? I waited, recognizing the weight in her voice. They said it themselves. My aunt was a nurse. They wrapped it, gave me pain pills, and threatened to disown me if I went to a real hospital. Said it would ruin his career, destroy the family. I kept quiet for 3 more years, until he put my cousin in the ICU. Harper. I'm not telling you this to pressure you, she continued. I'm telling you because I understand. The guilt, the loyalty, the fear of being the one who breaks the silence. But Emily, your brother won't stop. They never do. And your parents won't protect you. They've already proven that. My phone, which I'd turned back on, buzzed incessantly. I glanced at it 15 more missed calls, texts growing increasingly threatening. The latest from Ryan. You better not be doing something stupid. They're already threatening me, I said, showing her the phone. Dr. Lewis documented everything, the texts, the injury, my statement. She took photographs of the bruising with clinical detachment. Then she looked at me with something fiercer than professional concern. I'm filing the report, she said. Not just because I'm mandated to, but because you deserve better than this. Because maybe, just maybe, having an official record will protect you next time. There won't be a next time, I said. I'm done with them. I hope that's true. But in case it's not, in case the guilt and the manipulation wear you down because they're very good at that, aren't they? There will be a record, evidence, proof that this happened, no matter how they try to rewrite it. The call from the police came at 3:47 p.m. While I was trying to work up the courage to eat something, the investigator was professional, thorough, asking if I could come to the station to provide a formal statement. I'd barely hung up when my phone exploded. What have you done? My father's text was all capitals, no pretense of concern. Ryan's message was more direct. You fucking bitch. You're dead to me. My mother called 17 times in 10 minutes. When I finally answered, her voice was arctic. The police just left Ryan's office. His office. Emily, do you have any idea what you've done? What people will say? He assaulted me. Mother. He did no such thing. You fell. You were drunk. You've always been jealous of him, and now you're trying to destroy. I hung up again. It was getting easier. Within hours, the Grant family machine kicked into high gear. My father's lawyer called, offering to mediate this family misunderstanding. My mother's friends began reaching out, their messages thinly veiled threats wrapped in concern. I heard you're going through something, dear. Your mother is just devastated. Perhaps you should talk to someone about these delusions. But the worst came from Ryan himself. He didn't call he was too smart for that now. Instead, he started his campaign at my workplace. I discovered it the next morning when I arrived for my shift. Colleagues who usually greeted me warmly now offered awkward smiles or avoided eye contact altogether. In the break room, conversation stopped when I entered. "Everything okay?" I asked Dr. Patterson, who I'd considered a friend. She hesitated. "Emily, is it true what they're saying about you making false accusations against your brother?" "What exactly are they saying?" "That you've been struggling, that you had a breakdown at a family dinner and now that you're trying to hurt your family because of some long-standing resentment." The Grant narrative, spreading like poison through my professional life. I learned later that Ryan had called the hospital board chair golf buddy of my father's expressing concern about my mental state and my fitness to practice medicine. By the end of my shift, I'd received 3 messages from HR requesting a meeting to discuss recent concerns about your well-being. I drove to Melissa's apartment instead of going home, my best friend since residency. She was the only person who'd ever suspected the truth about my family. She took one look at me and pulled me inside. "Jesus, Emily, you look like hell. What happened?" I told her everything. The dinner, the assault, the report, the retaliation. She listened without interrupting, her face cycling through shock, anger, and fierce protectiveness. "Those bastards," she said when I finished. "Pack a bag. You're staying here." "I can't impose—" "Shut up. You're staying here. And tomorrow, we're calling my cousin. She's a victim's rights attorney, pro bono for cases like this." "Melissa, they're already trying to destroy my career." "Let them try. You have the medical records, the police report, the texts. You have evidence. They have money and influence. But you have the truth." That night, sleeping on Melissa's couch with ice packs on my ribs, I scrolled through my phone. 63 missed calls. Over 100 texts. Friends I hadn't heard from in years suddenly reaching out, having heard concerning things from my mother. Family members choosing sides, most of them Ryan's. My aunt's message hurt the most. "Emily, I know Ryan can be difficult, but this is extreme. Think of your parents. They don't deserve this scandal at their age." Nobody asked if I was okay. Nobody wondered about my ribs, my pain, my fear. The narrative was set Emily the troublemaker, Emily the jealous sister, Emily the mentally unstable doctor who needed help. At 2 a.m., a text from an unknown number. "You think you're safe at your friend's place. We know where you are. Drop the charges or things get worse. A concerned friend." I showed it to Melissa in the morning. She immediately called her cousin. "Classic intimidation," Attorney Sarah Winters said over speakerphone. "Save everything, every text, every voicemail, every email. Document every interaction at work, every strange look, every conversation. They're going to try to discredit you, isolate you, make you feel crazy. That's their playbook." "It's working," I admitted. "Of course it is. They've had your whole life to perfect it. But here's what they didn't count on. You're not alone anymore. You have Dr. Lewis's report. You have me. You have Melissa. And you have something they can't buy or intimidate away the truth." "The truth doesn't seem to matter much right now." "Not right now," Sarah agreed. "Right now, they're in damage control mode, spinning their story, calling in favors. But court isn't about who has more friends or more money. It's about evidence. And from what you've shown me, we have plenty." That afternoon, another gift arrived at Melissa's apartment. Not a basket this time, a single white envelope with my name in my mother's handwriting. Inside, a check for $50,000 and a note. "For your troubles, cash it and let this go. Final offer." I photographed it and added it to the evidence file. The war had begun, and my family had made one thing clear: they would rather destroy me than admit what Ryan had done. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't backing down. The evidence file grew thicker each day. Sarah Winters had been clear: document everything. Save everything. Assume everything could be relevant in court. My phone became a recording device. My notebook a detailed log of every encounter, every whispered conversation at work, every concerned message from family friends. "Oh, we need to be strategic," Sarah explained during one of our late-night sessions at Melissa's kitchen table. "Your family has resources, but they're also arrogant. They're used to people folding under pressure. Every threatening text, every attempt to bribe you, it's all admissible." I'd started recording phone calls after North Carolina's one-party consent law was explained to me. The recordings were damning. My father, usually so controlled, let his mask slip during one conversation. "You ungrateful little bitch. Do you know what this is doing to our reputation? Ryan has investors pulling out, board members asking questions, all because you couldn't keep your mouth shut about a little family squabble." "A little family squabble that broke my ribs," I'd responded calmly, Sarah's coaching echoing in my head. "You fell. You've always been clumsy, and now you're trying to ruin your brother's life because of your own inadequacy." Every word recorded, every threat preserved. The workplace harassment escalated. HR called me in for 3 separate meetings, each one framed as concern for your well-being, but clearly aimed at building a case for administrative leave. Someone I suspected Ryan's influence had suggested I might be a danger to patients in my current emotional state. "This is insane," Melissa said after the 3rd meeting. "You're one of the best doctors in that hospital." "Doesn't matter," I replied, organizing my documentation. "They're creating a paper trail, making it look like I'm unstable." Sarah had prepared me for this too. We'd drafted a formal response to HR, CCing my union representative and creating our own paper trail. I requested specific examples of concerning behavior, dates, witnesses. When they couldn't provide any beyond "colleagues have expressed worry," we had our own ammunition. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Ryan's ex-girlfriend Sarah, the one whose casual mention had triggered the assault, reached out through Facebook. "I heard what happened." Her message read, "I'm sorry. He did the same to me. I have photos, medical records. I was too scared to do anything then. But maybe they'll help you now." We met at a coffee shop 2 towns over. She was nervous, constantly checking over her shoulder, but determined. "He was charming at first," she said, sliding a folder across the table. "Then the jealousy started, the accusations. The first time he hurt me, he bought me a Tiffany necklace the next day, said I'd made him crazy, that it was my fault for talking to my ex at a party." The photos were brutal. Black eyes hidden behind sunglasses, finger-shaped bruises on her upper arms. A split lip explained away as a minor car accident. "Why didn't you press charges?" I asked gently. She laughed bitterly. "Against Ryan Grant. His family owns half this state. Besides, he had everyone convinced I was a gold digger, that I was unstable. Sound familiar?" It did, painfully familiar. "There are others," she continued. "His college girlfriend, Rebecca, a woman from his MBA program. We've talked, compared notes. None of us had the courage to come forward alone, but maybe together." Sarah Winters nearly danced when I showed her the new evidence. This establishes a pattern of behavior. It's not just about one incident anymore, it's about who Ryan is, how your family enables him, how they've done this before. We tracked down the other women. Rebecca was willing to provide a written statement. The MBA colleague, Jennifer, had kept text messages from Ryan that showed the same escalation pattern: charm, control, violence, gifts, gaslighting. My family's response to the mounting evidence was predictable. They tried to discredit each woman individually. Rebecca was mentally ill. Jennifer was vindictive after Ryan ended things. Sarah, the ex-girlfriend, was clearly coaching Emily in her lies. But they couldn't explain away the medical records, the photographs, the eerily similar patterns of abuse across multiple relationships, multiple years. Ryan made one crucial mistake. In his arrogance, he left me a voicemail at 3:12 a.m., drunk and furious. "You think you're so fucking smart, getting my exes involved? You've always been a jealous little bitch. Couldn't stand that I was Dad's favorite. Remember when you were 8 and I broke your camera? You deserved it then, and you deserved what you got at dinner. Next time I'll make sure you can't walk away." Sarah played the recording for the prosecutor they'd assigned to the case. "That's a direct threat," she said. "Combined with the assault, the pattern of behavior, the witness intimidation, we're looking at multiple charges now." The war room at Melissa's apartment looked like a legal office exploded. Boxes of evidence, printed emails, transcribed recordings. We'd built a fortress of truth against their empire of lies. "They're going to come at you hard in court," Sarah warned. "Character assassination, victim blaming, every dirty trick in the book. Are you ready for that?" I thought about 8-year-old me, crying over broken camera pieces while being told it was my fault. About teenage me, hiding bruises and believing I deserved them. About adult me, still showing up to family dinners where my pain was less important than their reputation. "I've been ready my whole life," I said. I just didn't know it until now. The courtroom smelled like old wood and disappointment. I sat at the prosecutor's table, my ribs still aching despite the weeks of healing, watching my family file in like they owned the place. They probably thought they did. My father in his $3,000 suit, my mother in pearls that cost more than most people's cars, and Ryan clean-shaven, well-dressed, looking every inch the successful executive and nothing like the man who'd shoved me into marble. Their lawyer was exactly what you'd expect, silver-haired, sharp-eyed, with the kind of confidence that came from winning cases through intimidation rather than truth. Mine was different. Sarah Winters wore a simple black suit and carried herself with the quiet determination of someone who'd fought bigger giants than the Grants. Judge Martinez called the hearing to order at 9 a.m. sharp. This wasn't the full trial, just a preliminary hearing to determine if there was enough evidence to proceed, but we all knew it was more than that. It was the first public airing of the Grant family secrets. The prosecutor, Ada Jennifer Chin, started with the facts, the assault, the medical records, the pattern of behavior. She was clinical, precise, building the case piece by piece. Then came our first witness, Dr. Harper Lewis. "Dr. Lewis, can you describe Emily Grant's condition when she came to your office?" Harper's testimony was devastating in its simplicity. She described my injuries with medical precision, showed the x-rays, explained the force required to cause such fractures. When the defense tried to suggest I could have sustained such injuries from a simple fall, she destroyed that theory with physics and anatomy. In my professional opinion, these injuries were consistent with a forceful push, not an accidental fall, the angle of impact, the pattern of bruising someone did this to her. Ryan's expression never changed. He'd perfected that boardroom poker face, but I saw his jaw tighten when Harper mentioned the bruising on my wrists, details he thought would never see daylight. The defense attorney, Mr. Blackwood, tried to paint me as unstable, jealous, attention-seeking. He brought up my history of family conflicts, as if being a victim was a character flaw, but Sarah had prepared me for this. When I took the stand, I didn't flinch. "Ms. Grant, you claim your brother pushed you. Had you been drinking that evening?" "I had 1 glass of champagne over a 3-hour dinner," I replied steadily. "And you expect us to believe that your successful brother, with no criminal record, suddenly attacked you without provocation?" "I mentioned his girlfriend. That was the provocation. And it wasn't sudden. Ryan has been violent toward me since we were children." "Objection," Blackwood said quickly, prejudicial and unsubstantiated. But Ada Chin was ready. "Your Honor, we have evidence to establish a pattern of behavior." What followed was the systematic dismantling of the Grant family facade. Sarah, the ex-girlfriend, testified via video link she was too afraid to be in the same room as Ryan. Her voice shook as she described similar attacks, similar cover-ups, similar gifts meant to buy silence. "He told me his family would destroy me if I ever spoke up," she said, "that no one would believe a nobody over a Grant." Rebecca's written statement was read into the record. Jennifer testified in person, her anger palpable as she described Ryan's escalation from control to violence. But the moment that changed everything came when Ada Chin played the voicemail. Ryan's drunk, threatening voice filled the courtroom. "Next time I'll make sure you can't walk away." I watched my parents as those words echoed. My mother's perfectly composed face cracked slightly. My father's jaw clenched, but neither looked surprised. They'd always known who their son was. They'd just chosen him anyway. Blackwood tried damage control. "Your Honor, my client was clearly intoxicated and emotional. This was an empty threat made in a moment of frustration." An empty threat. Ada Chin pulled up the text messages. "Like these empty threats, quote, 'You're dead to me. Drop the charges or things get worse. You better not be doing something stupid. Your Honor, this is a clear pattern of intimidation." Then came the moment I dreaded and needed in equal measure. Ada Chin introduced the family dynamics into evidence. "Ms. Grant, did your parents witness the assault?" "Yes." "And what was their response?" I looked directly at my parents as I answered. They told me I fell, that I was being dramatic. My mother gave me pain medication and told me not to make a scene. My father said I was being selfish for wanting medical attention. And the next day, "They offered me $50,000 to drop the charges. I have the check and the note." The check was entered into evidence, my mother's handwriting, damning in its elegance. "For your troubles. Cash it and let this go. Final offer." Blackwood made one last attempt. "This is a family matter that's been blown out of proportion. The Grants are pillars of this community. Ryan Grant employs hundreds of people. Surely mediation—" "Mr. Blackwood," Judge Martinez interrupted. "Are you suggesting that employment statistics should influence how we handle assault charges?" The hearing lasted 4 hours. 4 hours of evidence, testimony, and the slow unveiling of years of carefully hidden violence. When Judge Martinez finally spoke, the courtroom was silent. "I've seen many cases of domestic violence in my career. What makes this one particularly troubling is not just the assault itself, but the systematic attempt to silence the victim through family pressure, workplace harassment, and financial coercion." She looked at Ryan. "Mr. Grant, there is more than sufficient evidence to proceed with charges of assault, criminal threatening, and witness intimidation." Then she turned to my parents. "While you're not charged with any crimes, I want to make something clear. Enabling abuse is its own form of violence. Choosing reputation over your daughter's safety is a choice you'll have to live with." The gavel came down. Ryan would face trial. As we filed out, my father tried to approach me. Court security stepped between us, but I heard his words clearly. "You've destroyed this family." "No," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You destroyed it the first time you looked away when Ryan hurt me. I'm just finally telling the truth about the ruins." The courthouse steps felt different this time. 6 months had passed since the preliminary hearing, and today, Ryan Grant had been found guilty on all charges. 2 years in prison, 3 years probation, and a permanent restraining order. It wasn't the maximum sentence, but it was something the Grant family money couldn't buy their way out of. I stood there, breathing in the crisp February air, watching my parents exit through a side door to avoid the media. They looked older, smaller somehow. The Grant empire still stood, but its foundation had cracked. Ryan's conviction had triggered investigations into some of their business practices. Turns out, people who cover up family violence often have other secrets too. "How does it feel?" Melissa asked, linking her arm through mine. "Free," I said, and meant it. The trial had been brutal. Every dirty tactic Blackwood threatened, he'd used. They'd painted me as unstable, jealous, vindictive. They'd brought in character witnesses to testify about what a good man Ryan was, how generous, how successful. But Sarah Winters and Ada Chin had been relentless. The evidence was overwhelming. The other women's testimonies were devastating. And through it all, the truth had this funny way of shining through the expensive lies. The moment that sealed Ryan's fate wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, almost mundane. During cross-examination, He'd been asked a simple question about the night of the assault. For just a second, his mask slipped, and the jury saw what I'd always seen: the cold fury of a man who believed his wants mattered more than other people's pain. My phone buzzed, a text from Dr. Harper Lewis: "Proud of you, coffee tomorrow." I'd returned to work 2 months ago, not at Ashford General. I'd taken a position at a community clinic in a neighboring town. Less prestigious, maybe, but I could breathe there. My colleagues judged me on my medical skills, not my family name. My patients didn't care about the Grant scandal. They cared that I listened, that I saw them. As we walked to the car, I noticed someone standing by a bench across the street, a young woman, probably mid-20s, watching me with an expression I recognized. That mix of fear and hope that every abuse survivor knows. She approached hesitantly. "Are you Dr. Emily Grant?" "Yes." I followed your case. My brother." She didn't finish. Didn't need to. I handed her Sarah Winter's card. "Call her. Tell her I sent you. You don't have to do this alone." She took the card with shaking hands, nodded, and walked away quickly. She was the 4th person to approach me since the trial started. It turns out that when you break the silence, you give others permission to break theirs too. That evening, I sat in my new apartment, small but mine, looking through old photos. I'd found them while packing up my things from the family house. Pictures from before, when I still believed in the possibility of earning my family's love. There was one of 8-year-old me with my camera, taken just days before Ryan broke it. I looked so hopeful. I'd started taking pictures again. Not professionally, just for me. Capturing moments of beauty in a world I was learning to see differently. Last week, I'd photographed the sunrise from my bedroom window, the light breaking through clouds like hope through trauma. My phone rang, unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Emily." The voice was tentative, older. "This is your Aunt Margaret. I wanted to apologize for not believing you, for taking their side. I was wrong." We talked for an hour. She told me things I'd never known: how my grandmother had tried to intervene when Ryan was young, how she'd been shut out of the family for suggesting he needed help, how the Grants had always been this way, generations of covering for the men who carried the name. "But you broke the cycle," she said before hanging up. "You did what none of us could." I thought about cycles a lot now, about the patterns we inherit and the ones we choose to break. In therapy, because yes, even doctors need help processing trauma. We talked about how violence is a legacy some families pass down like heirlooms. But so is courage, even if it skips a generation or two. 3 days after the verdict, I received a letter, my mother's handwriting, but different somehow, less perfect. "Emily, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I need you to know that I see it now, what we did, what we allowed, what we chose. Your father refuses to acknowledge it, but I can't pretend anymore. I was so focused on protecting our image that I failed to protect my daughter. I failed as a mother. I'm in therapy now, trying to understand why. Maybe someday, if you're willing, we could talk. Not as grandmother and daughter, but as 2 women trying to heal. Mom." I kept the letter but didn't respond. Maybe someday, but not yet. Healing isn't forgiveness, and forgiveness isn't forgetting. Right now, I was focusing on building a life where love didn't come with bruises and family didn't mean fear. As I looked out my window at the city lights, I thought about that night everything changed. The crack of my ribs against marble. The moment I decided that my pain mattered more than their reputation. The day I stopped being a Grant and started being myself. I touched my side where the ribs had healed stronger than before. That's the thing about bones: they remember the break, but they grow back different, tougher. Like some families aren't worth keeping, especially when they break more than your bones. The truth had cost me my family, but silence would have cost me myself. And in the end, that wasn't a price I was willing to pay anymore. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing to the channel and sharing your thoughts. Your experiences and perspectives matter, and this community grows stronger when we support each other. Remember, you're never alone, and your truth deserves to be heard.